What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet. And I am black up in your face again with some more pro black commentary. So, we all know that world renowned actor James Earl Jones has recently passed away. And, I will say to his family and his close friends, I give my condolences to them. I do feel bad about that because James Earl Jones was an actor that I very much grew up with in my life. I remember seeing him in movies like he played Alex Haley in the Roots movies. He was one of my favorite villains of all time in film. He played Thulsa Doom in the Conan the Barbarian movie, and a lot of people know him as the voice of Darth Vader. And, it's interesting to me because he's such an accomplished actor that career spans decades that I'm surprised that he's only been kind of reduced to the voice of Darth Vader. Like, I think he's accomplished way more than that and has had a lot of better roles than just that. I mean, that's a big one because it's one of the greatest or one of the biggest sci-fi movies of all time. So I get that, and it has a big fandom. But in my opinion, James Earl Jones, him being actually in front of the camera is more accolades behind that than just his voice. Even though his voice is extremely unique, he had probably one of the most unique voices in entertainment, and that's why it was used so many times. It's not just voice acting in like animated films like The Lion King, or even used for CNN. But it was sad that he passed away, and the thing is, he's left a legacy behind of amazing films that you can watch him in and still enjoy what he left for us. Uh, One of the things that he left for us, though, seem to have a problem with, and I want to talk a little bit about that in this video. This is not really a tribute to James Earl Jones. This is more of a discussion about some of his comments. And what I'm talking about is some of the comments that he made about black women. I believe it was in like either the late 60s or early 70s. He was doing an interview, and he was actually sitting there with his white wife at the time, and they were sitting there talking about black women. And he was, at this time, if you go watch the interview, I'll put a link to it, and you guys can go watch it if you haven't seen it already. I mean, it's spread all over social media at this point. But if you go watch it, you'll see that a lot of the things that he says in that video are things that continue even to this day. Like, that's why, like, when I watched it, it really wasn't, what he said was nothing new. Like, he said all the typical buzzwords and buzz statements that have been said about black women since that time period. But it's interesting because that's like, he was like at the start of it where, you had a lot of people saying that black women were more masculine, right? And black women were less feminine, and black women were, jumping on the whole militant feminism train at that time. That was the mindset back then. And I've had a lot of people that will say that, like, deny that happened, but I will say this: it was definitely not all black women jumping on that bandwagon, but there was a segment of the black female population that were jumping on that bandwagon. And the thing is, you hear a lot of the same rhetoric today, where a lot of black men still have a lot of the same complaints. I'm saying this in quotes now, about black women being more masculine, or them having to take over as like the breadwinners and take over in like more masculine roles, like the head of the household and stuff like that, and having to be strong and independent. you know just all that stuff was culminated in this interview, and I don't want to go through the whole interview here, but once again, you can go watch it. And like I said, he's literally sitting there with the white woman. In fact, towards the end of the video, they asked the white woman about it, and she basically co-signs everything that James Earl Jones just said, right? So, I saw a lot of people were like reposting this. In fact, one of the first places I saw, like literally, James Earl Jones had not even been put in the ground yet, and The Root was reposting this video. So, that's one thing I will say about this. It's always very interesting to me that when a black male passes away, that these so-called black media outlets, these mainstream ones, will automatically find something negative about that black man and post it everywhere. You know what I mean? Like a black man's not allowed to die in peace. Now, if it's a white guy, they don't say anything. When that Count Dracula looking ass prince, the queen's, what's his name, Prince Philip, the one that was married to Queen Elizabeth, when that devil passed away, you didn't see anything bad from these so-called black outlets saying anything bad about him, right? And anytime a white man passes away, you don't really have any of these outlets saying anything bad about them. But if it's a black man, they'll dig up whatever they can, whatever thing negative they can find. And when they find something that is gender war specific, they'll post that everywhere, and it'll make its way around social media. So it got to the point where the headline for what I was seeing was James Earl Jones hates black women. So why are black women celebrating him after he passed away? Like that was the headline. And when you actually go watch the interview, it's not that. In fact, it almost seems like he's somewhat praising black women for being feminist. You know what I mean? Like, because I guess he's trying to skate the line. I can tell because he's kind of stumbling over his words here and even contradicting himself in this interview. But I think he's trying to skate the line because on one side of things, being a black person who's kind of like a liberal in Hollywood, he wants to be supportive of this new feminist type movement, right? But on the other side of things, he's still not going to hook up with a woman like that because, for a lot of these Hollywood Negroes, and I put James Earl Jones in that category, Hollywood Negroes, they feel that they need that white woman as their trophy. That's what they need in order to validate themselves. I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a second. But yeah, that interview made its way around the internet, and people have been, tearing James Earl Jones down because of it. But in my opinion, the interview itself wasn't that bad. It's typical, right? Like I'm not surprised by it. In fact, I've heard both black men and black women in Hollywood say exactly the same things. So it's not anything new. It's nothing that you haven't heard yet. All right, the typical criticisms of black women being more masculine and being the strong backbone of the black community, every type of nonsensical stereotype and conjecture or every type of criticism of black women is in there, right? But here's my issue with what James Earl Jones was saying, and to a lot of the black males who co-sign this mentality, is a lot of times they do leave out their side of it. Like it's, let me see how I can explain this. So when it comes to this whole gender war, I notice both sides, both black males and black females, they're hyper focused on the other, right? They're very good at analyzing what the other side is doing is wrong, but they never point that microscope onto themselves. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where the problem comes in because, then that side, so like if a black man is over scrutinizing black women like that, and the fact that he's even doing it sitting there in front of white people with a white woman on his arm, it comes off as very judgmental and it comes off as an attack, right? So the other side will automatically become very defensive. And likewise, a lot of black women do this as well. where they'll be very judgmental and overanalyze black men without looking at their half of the spectrum. You know what I'm saying? So it's always this back and forth where everyone's pointing the finger at each other, but no one's doing any type of critical self-analysis. And that's the biggest problem I have with the gender war and with black males, is that they're rarely ever critical, or they do any type of analysis of where they went wrong. You see, because the truth of the matter is, this is the hard truth, black people did not get into this position or get into this situation without the other, right? So for whatever flaws a black woman might have, the black man has the same flaws. It might manifest itself in different ways, but it's the same thing, you see? So, if we're going to have this type of discussion, or, have any type of criticism of the other, we need to also criticize ourselves from where we screwed up. Because it's not just the other side. We're not in this position because one gender is bad or one gender screwed up. We worked in tandem to get to this bad position, and it's my belief that we have to work in tandem to get out of it. One gender is not going to free itself or free black people continuing down this path. Okay, and sorry, black men, I'm sorry to let you know this, but you're not going to be able to fornicate your way to freedom either. You getting a white spouse, or having half mixed white children, that's not going to free you either. All right, the Moors tried it. The Moors were the original passport bros, and you saw what happened to black people after that. Okay, completely destroyed their entire society. They mated with all of these white women, right, and had half black children, but those mulatto children still went and mated with other European women, and in not only 2 generations, you had these mixed European grandchildren and great grandchildren kicking their Moorish grandfathers and great grandfathers out of Europe. You see what I'm saying? And subjugating them and putting them in chains and whatnot. So we're not going to be able to fornicate our way to freedom, brothers. I know a lot of black men think that that's the solution. It's not. And you'll have a lot of black males who won't be honest about, their obsession with white skin. They won't admit that they're just as brainwashed as the black female when it comes to their love of white women, right? They make it seem like, oh, the white woman is more feminine and she's more soft and demure. But it was the white woman that created feminism in the first place. So whatever criticism you can give the black woman about being masculine or being hard, or the feminist movement was spread out and going on real strong right there in the white community as well. So you looking at this white woman as a saving grace, or your peace, as some black men actually say that's it's a falsehood, and they just want to come out and admit that when a black man gets a white woman, they'll look past a lot of the quote unquote flaws because they've been trained to think that the white woman is better. No soon as a black person is born, is put into their minds that a white woman or a white man is the epitome and close to God and everything else, and that's why they have to be with them. As David Carroll used to say, that white skin covers up a multitude of imperfections and sins. So even if she's Trailer Park, Dirty Foot, Peckerwood Becky, she's better than the best black woman, and a Negro will have that white woman as his trophy, right? That's a symbol of success, just like getting the nice house, living outside the ghetto, and getting a better neighborhood, getting a brand new car. That white woman is a status symbol for a lot of Negroes. That's why so many of them in Hollywood and entertainment would get themselves a white woman or a white spouse. That's like the ultimate achievement for a lot of black males, and that's the truth. That's what it is psychologically, right? So if if James Earl Jones wants to make a lot of the criticisms of black women in this regard, I almost wouldn't mind it so much, even though some of it is a little ridiculous considering the time period. You know what I mean? Like you would think, as someone who's actually in that time period, he would actually see some black women who are not that way, right? There obviously there were plenty of feminine black women out there. Everyone wasn't the big, strong, mammy type. So there are plenty of feminine black women out there. So I don't know what he's talking about, right? But to make that as your excuse as to why you don't want to be with a black woman, it's all black women's fault that you're with this white woman. Just come out and say, Negro, this is where I want it to be because of where my mind is. It's not black women's fault. Likewise, when you get these black women out here who are with Snowbrad, the abominable Snowbrad, just be honest about why you're with them. Because you wanted to be there. Don't blame black men. Don't be saying because black men ain't SHIT, that's why I had to get this white man. Just be with who you want to be with and acknowledge that it's where your mind is. It's your mindset that puts you there. It has nothing to do with the other gender. All right? Just be honest about why you're there. And I think people would probably not jump on you as much if it wasn't so much of a I'm blaming the other gender for my decisions. See what I'm saying? So, I mean, you folks can let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. I don't. I won't say I hate James Earl Jones for this. I will say that he's typical of the Hollywood Negro. He's no different than Sidney Poitier and Quincy Jones. He's no different than like Richard Pryor and just so many of these black male entertainers who have this mindset about putting white people on a pedestal, right? So it continues even now until today. All right. So you folks let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. I would love to hear your opinions on this. Anyway, this is Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on the devil's back.